Man, one thing I want to break down is what it really means to be consistent, right? Many women talk about how it's important that a man is consistent. And when you understand womanese, you understand the concept that a woman is honest in what she says. It's just that in a lot of instances, if she delves further into the topic, she's then going to say some things that are going to be inconsistent. No, that's a generalization, but that's typically how it happens, right? Because when a woman says she wants consistency, you have to understand that there's different roles and different ways that consistency looks for different roles that you want to play. So when I'm talking about consistency, one thing that is very important for us to understand is Brodie's scale of sexual attraction. I got it posted on my community tab, right? That's where it's at, right? Now, with Brodie's scale of sexual attraction, one thing to understand is this. If you try to jump up a level, right, because you can tell that a woman is not receptive on the level that you're approaching her, she will feel unsafe, right? If you try to jump up a level because she's not receptive to the level that you made your approach, she will feel unsafe or disrespected, depending on how much of a threat she sees you. Right, so for some, the defense mechanism will be to be disrespectful. Sometimes it'll be to ghost you, right? Sometimes it'll just be to start being very vague or to start showing signs of defense mechanisms. Sometimes it's to shell up. There's different things that'll happen if you try to escalate from the point that you approach a woman. That's why I say to know, as a man, have standards. Not just about how attracted you are to a woman, but make even more important to that, the standard of how attracted a woman is to you. And base that on a foundation of desire and respect. And what I mean by respect is this. There's different definitions of it, but one I like to use when it comes to understanding sociosexual dynamics is when it comes to dom-sub dynamics, especially, and masculine and feminine dynamics, right? Respect comes from a person wanting your approval, desiring your approval, desiring your validation, right? If you're going to get some advice from a person, respecting that person is knowing that typically what they say is right and or it is consistent. That's what it is. And that is what gives you the ability to want them to be the stable force that you go to when you're feeling unsure about things. But do you really want to go to somebody who's unsure about things when you're unsure about things as well? No, you only want to do that when you want to vent. And you don't have to respect the person a lot to vent. You don't, depending on what type of person you are. See, the thing to understand is that when you jump up a level, you create a feeling of unsafety, right? Like, let's say there's different behaviors, there's different ways of speaking to a woman that are predicated upon the level of sexual attraction that she has to you, that she will be receptive to. And that each one has a different way you need to operate. If you're taking a dominant stance, right, you have to have the ability, the emotional discipline that your behavior with that woman needs to show and exhibit, right? That your experiences outside of her are consistent to the treatment that you expect from her. And if you're doing things like trying to hold the woman accountable, right? Getting butt hurt, being impatient. Not impatient in the way that you might leave. She's too late to a date. But impatient like checking in all the time, or like, let's say she says, okay, I'm busy right now. and I'll talk to you later. She don't try to set a time, right? She doesn't try to apologize like, I'm sorry, I can't do whatever it is right now. But, those are signs of a woman who genuinely wants to. But that's not even the best signs. Some of the best signs are a woman who will find a way to make herself free, right? Like, I'll give you an example, right? On an 8 level of sexual attraction, sex is an equivalent exchange, right? Your penis, her vagina is equivalent exchange. Now, if she is free, right? If she's free, or if you're the main or the primary guy she's already dealing with, then she will let you know when she'll be free, right? Or if you hit her up when she's free, then she will reciprocate. Cool. Now, if she has that 8 level sexual attraction, 8 level of respect, then as long as you're not afraid of rejection in how you approach her, and you have the patience that, let's say it's a text message or a call, that if you hit her up, she don't hit you back, then you just leave the situation alone until she reaches out to you, right? Or let's say you hit her up and then she hits you back, but when she hits you back, it's not very committal, so you don't show any signs of being butthurt. You just kind of understand the situation for what it is, and you don't over pursue the situation or try to convince her to do what it is you want her to do. You just be cordial, right? But cordial in a way that shuts down the continuation of the conversation. Not responding in a way where it is necessarily like you want to continue the conversation if the woman's flaked or she didn't do something you gave her instructions to do. Because that's a 9 level, right? Expecting a woman to make herself available, right? A woman making herself available to have sex with you is a 9 level of attraction, right? It's not, right? Certain things that you may request of a woman or require her to do in order to deal with you. If you try to go very much on the dominant side, you may be tapping on 9 territory with a woman who will take an 8 approach. Here's an example. Let's say you hit a woman up. Say you want to have sex with her. She down to have sex with you. But then you tell her, nah, the first time I want you to just come through, suck some dick. And I might do something else, but you don't guarantee her the dick. Then for a woman who has an 8 level of sexual attraction, that's going to turn her off. Then she's going to tap into the masculine headspace. She's going to feel like you're asking too much. Then she may try to get you to acquiesce to lower, right? If you acquiesce to lower, she may lose respect because she had the ability to check you and you didn't stand your ground on what desired level you really required. So she may think that you actually probably truthfully require a lower level than you say that you do. So know what you'll really go for. If you're really the guy who says you don't want to do that unless you do that, that means that how you communicate, the rhythm at which you communicate needs to be consistent with what it would appear to be someone who has that lifestyle going for them already. That means the more dominant it is, right? The more direct it is, the more you have to know how to not push to the point where it feels like pressure or coercion, right? But on the other end, let's say you approach a woman on a 7 level. You approach a woman on a 6 level. Then you have to wait, right? If you approach a woman on a 6 level, that means you have to wait until she's either gained enough attachment to the validation that you provide her in order for her to feel that you deserved it, or for you to pull away and stand your ground on pulling away until she comes back around and then she wants to make that happen. That's on a 6 level, right? And that's a very fine line between what can be seen as coercion, because I say whatever you trade for sex can be used against you, right? Let's say it's a 7 level. If a woman has a 7 level of sexual attraction, you make a 7 level approach, right? Which one may be something more along the lines of maybe just one date, something casual, right? And not casual like casual wear, but casual like maybe go to a coffee shop, right? There's no expectation of sex, but there's plausible deniability. Netflix and chill. That would be more of a 7 level of sexual attraction, because you're offering enough plausible deniability that in case the woman decides when she sees you that she doesn't want to have sex, that you're not going to pressure her, but that you're actively moving in a way to cause her to desire to sleep with you. That's the 7 level, the Netflix and chill, right? Certain level of plausible deniability. Maybe the date where you go get, a drink or two. And a lot of issues can pop up around this level. Like, let's say you smoke a blunt with a woman. The level that her horniness rises and her inhibition is lower may cause her to be willing to consent in a moment where she can't technically give consent because she's under the influence, but she'll be open to do it as long as she doesn't feel slut-shamed, and as long as it's not a situation where you're being overly aggressive about certain situations, then she'll be down for it. Cool, right? But you can't jump straight from a 7 to an 8. Now, what does that mean? That means that if you try to jump up from a 7 to an 8, it's like if you're texting a woman, right? And you're talking about Netflix and chill, and she's down for it, linking up with you, on a casual link up with maybe minimum to no money spent, just something casual. And then you text her about sex before y'all actually link up, right? Then she's going to feel unsafe, because you're being inconsistent with how you're presenting yourself based off of your behaviors. Right? Let's say you try to present marriage. Let's say she wants a guy who's going to wait for marriage. Right? Because offering to be a long-term financial provider, sugar daddy, a man who's willing to wait for marriage to have sex with a woman you want to have sex with, that's the 5 level, right? At least a long-term relationship, and even no guarantee there. If you start pushing for it, trying to jump from a 5 to a 6 level, then it can start to feel like pressure or coercion, or the woman may feel like you're going against her morals and her values, when she would break those rules with someone else. It's trying to jump from a 5 to a 6 level, right? And trying to jump from a 9 to a 10 level is like saying a woman desires to sleep with you actively, right? But then in her active desire, you make it completely transactional, right? Where she has to pay you. Now, there are times and there are ways of doing that to make those climbs up there. You have to follow through on the level that you're at, and to succeed in doing what it is that you're trying to do before you try to raise it based off of her already showing a high level of receptiveness at that level. Right? So this is about consistency when it comes to that, right? And that's why you set standards. And I say set a standard at 1 level that you're consistently going to move with. If it's a 7 level, then you have to understand, don't put pressure on a woman, right? You can take her out on a date, go on that date because it's just something you want to do. Use the opportunity to try to create the opportunities for sex to take place. But within that, you're just hanging out, having fun, right? But don't feel as if you were taking advantage of if you don't hit, because that butt hurt, that expectation, is something that's going to cause the woman to feel unsafe around you. If it's the 8 level, then you make sure that you're very direct about your sexual intentions. But there are certain things that may extend beyond the 8 level of sexual attraction, like nudes. Nudes can be something that goes at different points, but sometimes nudes, sometimes like feet pics. I got a foot fetish, shit. But if you want somebody to do something that's outside of their sexual norm, right? Too soon, especially when you have like when she has an 8 level of sexual attraction, you made an 8 level approach, then it may cause them to feel uncomfortable, and then they'll feel as if you're desperate and they'll ghost you, or that you're too aggressive, that you're overly sexual, right? Because your desire or your kinkiness extends beyond what it is that they're trying to do with you. So if it was just some straight up smashing, they would have been down, but you're doing too much, right? Know what level you want to make your approach on. If it's 9 level, of sexual attraction, then oftentimes you don't need to be, like, if that's what you require, it's probably best not to do that at your place of business, especially a 9-level approach, because a 9-level approach can be talking dirty to a woman, sowing a seed in her mind, catching her hand in the cookie jar about the idea of her just giving you head. That's like a 9-level. A 7-level can be approaching her like somewhat sexually, real gentle and stuff. But let's say you're hanging out with her, with plausible deniability, and then you find a way to catch her hand in the cookie jar and then offer to give her some head, right? With no expectation that you got to fuck just because you did it. You get her turned on enough when you do that. You do a good job when you win it. She attracted to you enough, all right, boom, that might be a ticket in there. But guess what? On a 6th level of sexual attraction, you pretty much a munch, right? Sometimes it's a 7 too, but really like a 6th level sexual attraction. A woman will take some head and that won't even sway her enough to want to have sex with you, right? So you'll just be eating away, munch, right? Yeah, and that shit was funny with Ice Spice. You thought I was feeling you? That nigga munch, right? And that's like a 6th level of sexual attraction, right? And sometimes a 7 if a woman's accustomed to much higher. Because on the 7 level, typically, you eat it right, you give her a little time and attention, you can slide up in there. Right? But don't take consent for one as just automatically consent for the other. Because penetrative sex is more intrusive. Right? And the level of investment, or how much she wants to maintain access to whatever she's gaining access to in order to be willing to do whatever it is, can play a role in what she's willing to do. So let's say a woman got a level of sexual attraction to you. She got respect for you, knowing how you get down. Let's say she cancels. Or let's say she wants to come over, right? Now, every time y'all link up, y'all have sex. Let's say she wants to come over now, but she says she's on her period. You be like, you sucking dick? Because she can't just switch it up from every time y'all link up being a directly sexual environment, and then, maybe y'all watch one movie and she want to come over and now switch it over to that, say she's on her period. Then if you're a real nigga, you might be like, oh, shit, I got towels. You know what I mean? Some dudes move it like that. I'll tell you this. I've had situations with women where never linked up to go on a date. Nothing like that. But they'll come through, and I've had women most of the time where a woman told me she was on her period. She ended up not being on her period. So I'm like, shit, come through anyways. Right? But on the 8th level, if a woman is really interested in seeing you or wants to maintain seeing you, like let's say she flaked or some shit like that, or maybe not flaked, but let's say her period pop up, or she wants to spend time with you anyways, then you can go, all right, cool, we'll come through, suck some dick. And you've been laying some good dick on her for a little while, then she may be able to come through do that on her period sometime, especially if you deal with her like a month or 2 or something like that. But jumping straight out the gate where her just come through to give you head when she got an 8th level of sexual attraction, it's typically not going to work unless she just really loves to do it, like really loves it. Right? So it's different ways these levels of consistency matter. But another way that it matters is this. If you drop down a level in the way that you're interacting or approaching this woman when it comes to the aspects of this sex game, when it comes to your approach, if you drop down a level, you'll often put yourself in a position where the woman loses respect for you, because it seems as if you're being inconsistent with who you are expressing yourself to be and how you want to interact with her, right? Because then it lets her know that she can take advantage of having a greater level of access to you without reciprocating, without feeling or fearing that you're going to walk away if things aren't going the way that you say you want it to, because you're folding on yourself. So if it's an 8 level approach, sometimes that plausible deniability may work, but oftentimes if you're direct with a woman about your sexual intentions, and then later on you try to flip it around and say, oh, well, come meet me here, or, come through, that woman may be like, nah, I ain't doing that. Now, if you led with that, she may have went for it. That's the truth. right? Let's say it's she got a 5 level, or no, let's say you make a 6 level approach, right? And then from the 6th level, you're starting to drop down to a 5, right? And that shit may happen like that. Let's say you make a 7 level approach, you drop down to a 6, right? Like, let's say you invite her over, and instead of trying to make this situation or scenario one where she's comfortable, and then you try to use that to create a sexual scenario, you try to play it as if you want to really take your time, let her get comfortable, and really just get to know her. Really get to know her first. That's a 6th level approach. If you drop down an approach, she don't feel pressed about it, then she like, well, I would have fucked him, but he didn't try anything. He just didn't try. So maybe he didn't want to do it. Every once in a while, that can work like reverse psychology to boost you up. Every once in a while it can. But typically, that's if you're already, you haven't said anything about your sexual intentions first. Right? Because there are times where, like, especially like a Topanga or certain types of women, they will entertain dudes who approach them in a way with lack of sexual confidence because they want to get that validation, right? But the thing about validation for human beings is, especially if the woman's insecure, and that's the reason why she's doing this in the first place. If this dude doesn't bring up the sexual intentions, then he's going to be filling her cup, and then she's going to be like, hold up. She's going to start to feel insecure because although you're making her feel non-sexually desirable, she's not sure if you truly sexually desire her. And she'll question herself. And after she questions herself, she'll challenge you. And you got to have your timing right to take advantage of the opportunity without overextending yourself, getting too ahead of yourself. And then now, out of her curiosity, it's been quenched. And now you're truly in the friend zone from a position where she felt like she had an opportunity to shoot you down sexually. Right? So this is just a masterclass in Brodie's scale of sexual attraction. It ranges from 5 to 10. I mostly am going to speak about 7 through 9. That's just how it works. Because I think most, really 6 to 8. I mostly talk about 6 to 8. And really 7 to 9 is what I mostly talk about. But I believe most relationships will going to range between the 6 to 8 range of attraction. Because most men aren't really setting their standards about what it will take for them to be willing to be in a relationship. For most men, to some extent, it's about being in that relationship to either gain or to maintain and sustain access to a woman sexually through the amount of emotional, social, or financial investment that he makes. And just over time, it just kind of turns into a relationship out of fear of losing the woman. Right? Or out of being overly caught up in how attractive she is and just attractive she is, or being love bombed by her doing things on her own and not actually showing that she can be receptive to his ideology, the way things should work. So in those situations, oftentimes a man will be in a relationship he doesn't need to be in. Right? So we got to understand what consistency is. Right? Because inadvertent behavior will mess you up. Because inadvertent behavior can cross the lines and make it appear that you truly feel like you should be giving certain things of yourself up when the woman already decided that you didn't have to. Right? So then she feels like she can get more out of you than you say that she can get. She loses respect for what your stance is. And then non-sexual things and validation become a higher priority than having sexual access to you. Right? Especially in casual scenarios. You gotta understand that. If you fucking with a woman 1 week, couple days, and then all of a sudden she wants you to be her boyfriend when she was cool with you being casual sex partners, might have been because you're probably cuddled up with her fucking chest to chest, kissing all in her mouth, looking all in her eyes, trying to take a shower with her. You know what I mean? Rubbing all on her while she sleep and then giving her words of affirmation in her ear. And you thought this was some fly shit. Like, oh man, yeah, I got her now. She gonna fall in love. No, now she's saying, okay, cool. I thought this dude was gonna be a little bit more cold than this. I thought I was going to have to work a little bit more for his affection. And now that I feel like he's willing to give it, I feel like he lied to me about what type of relationship he wanted to have. Oh, you know what? Now I feel like he's trying to manipulate me. He's a narcissist. See, that's how that stuff works right there. It's the premature integration. It's the mixing of the lines. You know, you want the woman to be in a position where she's receptive to what it is that you're trying to do. And she needs to desire more, but from a position where it's not something completely against what you say that you want, but something that standards can be set for and can be worked towards, right? And if it's too soon to even be thinking about having a conversation with her, then you might have to shut it down and accept that it's typically a no-limit soldier strategy, right? A great no-limit soldier strategy that they typically use is to ask you what you're looking for, right? Because although you may have never linked up with this woman and all you've ever talked about was pretty much catching her hand in the cookie jar sexually, now she wants to be in a position where she wants to take a masculine perspective and a masculine energy towards saying, okay, cool, what is this going to be? Do you want to be my future husband today and know that that's where we're heading, to date, quote unquote, intentionally? Or do you want to be just this dude, this fuckboy I'm fucking on from time to time? Pick one. Typically, if a woman comes at you like that, she's on some shit where it's like, all right, cool. She's decided she has at least an 8 level of sexual attraction to you. If she still deals with you after the fact, it's because she decided she had at least an 8 level of sexual attraction, and she decided you weren't too much of a risk to her heart. So she'll typically disrespect your time at that point. Right? Maybe play some games like that. But if you show emotional discipline towards it, have a regular rotation of women, then if she's not being consistent, then you just lower her as a priority, which is also important for you to understand. You can't be prematurely cutting off the women in your rotation just because you're starting to like a woman, right? Or just because you feel like a woman's starting to like you, especially if it's only been a couple of weeks or some shit like that. Because a test may come where a woman may try to get you to do that. Then all of a sudden, she might lose some of her desire to do it. She may just want to put you in a position where you're sexually isolated, sexual isolation, so that it is easier to try to manipulate you through sex instead of understanding that you are the guy that you are and understanding she has to actually meet your standards if she wants to be with you. And that even if you are open to monogamy is something that has to be earned and it has to be sustained. And if it's not sustained, you're going back to doing your thing. And it needs to be a situation where you have the security. Then if that's something she wants to do too, you have to be willing to either walk away or to get with that, right? Or to communicate with her and see what can be negotiated, see what can be understood. But even then, oftentimes negotiating with women ain't the thing. It's like, this is what the fuck I'm gonna do. So while being dominant is the primary giver of pleasure, primary receiver of control, it's not inconceivable that a woman's sexual attraction level can change over time. You know, it's dynamic, not static. And you also have to understand that how you go about integrating the non-sexual into the sexual, right? Merging those two aspects of a relationship. She may see things about you in the way that you merge those together that causes her to lose some level of respect, or lose some level of mystery, or lose some level of curiosity, or lose some level of excitement and novelty about you that may cause her to be more emotionally invested in you, right? Or attached to you. But it also may cause her to lose respect and sexual desire, which kills her ability to be submissive, right? And that's where sympathy plays more of a part than competence in the things that she does, right? Because a woman can have like a 9 level of sexual attraction to you, damn near 10 level. And in feeling that way about you, right? In feeling that way about you, she may be willing to spend money. I've told women to their face, dick ain't free. It's not. It is what it is. Now, she can do this and spend money and come fuck with you from a place of submissiveness, right? And that's the mentality of saying, I will spend some money to maintain access to this dick, and then subconsciously she understands that her investment causes her to enjoy it and seek to enjoy it more. So it's about giving up control. It's about just being on a time just to show her appreciation to you. She just want to spend some money, right? But if you a dude who doesn't have stability in your life, you may not notice if her attraction is lowering, if she's doing too much for the level of attraction she has, and it's burning her out if she doesn't really have it to do. Now, when she comes out of her highly aroused state of mind, she feels as if she lost too much, as if she was taken advantage of. He let her spend too much money. Now, next thing you know, if that unsureness comes in, she's going to test you, right? And if it's a situation where the sexual attraction drops to an 8 from a 9 or a 9.5, where she's spending money, then it drops down to an 8. She's not trying to spend money at an 8, right? At an 8 level, it's an equivalent exchange. If she does, that's out of pleasantries. Once you try to treat the extra stuff as if it's a requirement or as if it just comes with the territory, when she drops below a 9 level, then she may just lose interest because she feels like you're doing too much or you want her to do too much, especially if she comes across something that hits better. It's just how it works, right? So consistency and stability within yourself is important as well. It's very important to understand what consistency means, right? Being consistent is not just how a woman would explain talking to her all day, every day, always available, treating her as if she's just a priority over everything that you do, as if you don't have a life. You know, being consistent with her to the point where it just feels like you don't have any other women. And she never has any opportunity to think about how you feel about her and to question her position with you. She never has any opportunity to do that. And that's something that does strengthen a woman's attraction to you, unless she's very masculine. If she's very masculine, then that may cause her to lose interest, especially if she's already lost respect. But in a lot of instances, it's something that increases, and it's kind of like taking that ember of desire, taking that ember of respect, and adding that emotionality, adding that femininity to lubricate her submissiveness that causes you to go from a place where, you know, you can be on an 8 level or let's say a 7 level in a relationship. You could tell her straight up you want to get it popping, right? And that's like 7.5, 8 level, right? But on a 9 level, you can be demanding about it. On a 9 level, you can be damn near what people consider disrespectful about it, and that'll turn her on a 9 level of sexual attraction. And sometimes on an 8, but especially on a 9 level, that's where checking a woman will turn her on. Checking her will get her aroused. It'll get her wet. See, checking a woman is one of those things where it's not so much a matter of your aggression making the woman wield and submit because you're aggressive. That's fear. And fear of losing you and fear of what you'll do to her are not the same thing. They are not. Right? Unless it's a situation where, I'm not saying that never happens, but for the most part, how dudes think it works, it don't really work like that. A lot of what it does is it triggers like the memory of the anchoring that you've done sexually. I mean, let's say that woman's in subspace, you call her your nasty bitch, you say you my nasty bitch. Say you my nasty bitch, right? And then she starts saying, she start hollering, yeah, daddy, all that other shit, right? She starts saying all that stuff when she's having an orgasm, when she's in subspace, and you're doing certain things very dominant to her in those moments. How that permeates out into the real world is that at times, if you say those things at certain times, then when you say those things when she's not aroused, if her attraction level is high to you, then it will trigger arousal. And then she'll be reminded within her body and her emotions of what it feels like to be submissive to you. So that aggression, that checking her, is not about scaring the woman. It's about causing her body to remember and respond to the feeling of your dominance, right? If she drops below an 8 level of sexual attraction, where on the 7 level, sex is pretty much a transaction for comfort, then that aggression is going to make her feel chafed, right? Think about her submissiveness like it's a vagina, right? Think about it like it's a pussy. Femininity lubricates submissiveness for domination. It's the feminine submissive. But part of what that means is that it's malleable about the way it's being dominated. The masculine submissive is like a dry pussy, right? Because masculinity stifles submissiveness. So what that dry pussy does is you have to, it's a cold, dry pussy. So in order to deal with it, you have to add your own lubrication. It's the feminine dominant, right? It's artificial, right? Or you have to put in work, right, of giving attention in order to turn it on, heat up the oven so that you can do what you do. But if a woman's sexual attraction to is like an 8, 9 level, especially like a 9 level, then your presence alone, there's already a feeling of active desire. So your aggressiveness, your dominance is going to be something that turns her on even more. But when she's below an 8 level of sexual attraction, like when she's on a 7 level, then your dominance is going to be something that feels like it's too much, right? It's just like when a woman's on a 9 level of sexual attraction, she borders around being able to have orgasms from giving head, right? She receives so much pleasure that she can give you head and feel as if she's not even losing out on anything. Like she just enjoys it. And not just because of the pleasure that she gives you, but because the feeling of your dick in her mouth. Feeling on the veins, the head, all that other stuff, thinking about the size of it, thinking about the fact that it's you, that it's yours, that she's in your presence, and also the effect of what your reactions or your lack of reactions may do to her, and her desire to have you inside of her to the point where she just wants to swallow you up, right? She just wants to take that nut, right? Because she craves it, right? It's like a 9 level. That's kind of how that'll work with the act of desire, right? Now, another thing that comes with the 9 level is typically very easy orgasms from penetration. Oftentimes multiple, oftentimes maybe squirting at times too. That can happen at the 8 level, but really the 9 level, especially if she's never had them before. What else? Not feeling threatened or insecure about you fucking other people, or at least not enough for her to sabotage fucking with you. You know what I mean? Making herself available. Like making herself available. On a 9 level of sexual attraction, sex can be something that feels like a woman's never too tired for it. She's never too sleepy for it. She's never too hungry for it. She's never too thirsty for it. Right? It'll make the day better. If she had a bad day, it makes it better. Had a good day, it's nightcap to celebrate a great day, right? Wake up in the morning. If you wake her up out of sleep, she's happy about it. On a 7 level, you can't do that because she needs comfort and time to fill her cup with the validation that you give her in order for her to be in a position where she can reciprocate sexually due to the comfort and the plausible deniability that you've offered her. Understand that aspect of it, right? That's why there's oftentimes these conversations around love languages when it comes to relationships and all these talk about emotional intelligence and all these other things, when a lot of times the men that a lot of women like to fuck the most don't have these things. The ones who they do the most, to go out of their way the most to fuck with, don't often have these things, or at least utilize these things that they're talking about. It's just a matter of she enjoys the guy so much that what he gives her, is she's going to enjoy it and she's going to take it, right? But it's just that how a woman communicates her needs, or how she communicates when she respects or wants to a man who's asking, typically comes from a perspective of, if this man doesn't know, that means he's not a part of the dominant crowd. That's the reason why he's asking. That's the reason why he cares and listens to what I say in the first place. And therefore, I'm going to tell him if I were dominant. if I were trying to be logical about how I feel about relationships, this is what I think I would want from a man in order to be happy with him. And typically a woman would have to experience really giving herself open to the feminine submissive and embracing that lifestyle before she would even be able to publicly say that she doesn't like simps. Once a woman has felt that she could get both great dick and love together, she oftentimes does not like simps anymore. That's just the truth of the matter. Unless she just realizes or gives up on it and says, I can't get that. So there's something to understand about the lower levels of sexual attraction. For some women, if they get into a great enough place of abundance in their life, right, and internally, then they may not sleep with a guy below a certain level of sexual attraction. Right? And a woman who's very logical, the more masculine she is, the more she will attempt to shield herself from men she has a high level of sexual attraction to. So it's easier for her to be transactional. So it's like a woman who is like very down in the dump. You know what I mean? Like she don't have like much going on in her life, or she doesn't have a lot of moral values. You know, if she's gone through a lot of shit. I'm not saying every woman who engages in sex work is like this, but a lot are, where they'll be willing to sleep with a guy who she has a 5 level of sexual attraction to because it's transactional, because she just knows how to kind of check out, to do her job, to get her money, and to get up out of there. But if she gets to a place where she has her own money, and she no longer wants to engage in that lifestyle, she may cut out dealing with a dude who's a 5 level of sexual attraction in her actual dating life. You get what I'm saying? In her actual dating life, she may not go for that. She's only willing to do that if you're paying for it. And those can reach a certain level of abundance too, but the more picky they are, the less money they're gonna get. So, you know, it's a job. But then there's also women who are, and that's kind of like the no limit soldiers sometimes, right? The ones who completely separate sex from emotions in that capacity. Then sometimes you have the Topanga, right? Now the Topanga is typically going to be a woman who will try to place barriers of at least plausible deniability, but sometimes even greater barriers in a way of how she expresses herself, so that she can try to avoid giving the impression that she is susceptible to her own 8, 9, and 10 level of sexual attraction, or even her 7 level of sexual attraction. At the very least, she wants to convey herself as someone who is a 6 level of sexual attraction type of woman. That's who she goes for, and that she'll treat every man as if he's that level, which may not be true. But she'll convey herself that way to give the idea that her body is valuable, therefore you should seek to get to know her, which is really bad logic. It's bad logic. You don't know how a man really feels about you until you done fucked you a bunch of times. Truthfully. And also, it's one of those things where it's best not to be transactional about that. If you want to be non-sexually desirable, learn to make yourself non-sexually desirable, so that whether or not you're fucking or not fucking, people actually like you. But if the way you convey yourself is not really likable in the first place, then only a dude who's desperate enough will put up with you just because he wants to get some pussy out of it later. It doesn't make sense, right? Something to understand as well. So when it comes to being consistent, it's different things to understand what comes with it. It's different things to understand when it comes to what it means to be consistent, just like it's different things when it comes to what it means to be respectful based on Brodie's scale of sexual attraction, right? Because like I said, if you jump up a level greater than how she views you, she's going to see it as being unsafe or just disrespected, right? Like we always seen those things talking about if one guy approaches a woman, says one thing, it's flirting. If another one does it, it's harassing. That's a true thing. And that's another reason why I'm not the biggest fan of certain feminist narratives that they try to spread across all men, especially some third wave, not real feminists, but just like, you know, the sage burner shit. You know what I mean? The hyper victim mentality. You know what I mean? the hyper avoidance of accountability through astrology, through spirituality, through studying psychology, through studying all the terms and phrases in regards to therapy culture, like, the ones who overuse the words narcissist, who always talking about normalize, the ones who are always talking about, stop sexualizing. But at every turn they can, they use their sexuality to get as much attention and or resources as possible. They're just hypocrites. Most of them. Not all of them, but most of them. Like, most of them deeply just go back and forth between calling themselves things like pro-ho, but then also being on some stuff like respect women. And the thing to understand is this, right? It's like, what they mean by respect is not always going to be consistent when it comes to different men that they talk to. You can't allow yourself to be shamed out of doing what it is that you want to do. You can't allow that. That doesn't mean you force that on someone else, but it does mean that your approach is your approach. Somebody don't like it, that's why you set standards. If they don't like your approach, you keep it pushing, right? If you feel like you need to work on your approach or readjust your standards about how sexually attracted a woman needs to be to you, then understand how to walk through that one, to not expect more, but to know how to raise it up to a higher level if possible, but to not take it further than you should based on how high it is, right? Important concept to understand. I think so, personally. So really, as we bring all these things into mind and we bring all these things into view, it really helps us make more sense of, as a man, you got to know yourself, know how you're trying to do things, so that you're not swaying back and forth between this fake idea of what it means to just, well, if I move like an alpha male, she'll do it. That's not necessarily true, right? It's not about whether or not she'll do it or not and trying to find the best strategy to get the most women. It's about knowing what type of woman you're compatible with, what type of treatment you desire, and approaching enough women and getting enough practice with knowing how to make yourself attractive for experiencing that level of treatment consistently, and just finding women who are on that page when it comes to you. The women who are receptive to that, how did you approach them? Right? What were the nuances? What were the things you saw from them? Right? Like, if it's a 9 level of sexual attraction, then it's kind of choosing signals territory, right? 8 level of sexual attraction, that's the, cold approach territory, right? The direct approach, right? Like, I would say mode 1 is something that would work on a woman who is at least an 8 level of sexual attraction to you. And sexual attraction is more than just your looks. Sometimes your lack of fear in your approach and your seductive mouthpiece can sway a woman to the 8 level of sexual attraction based off of how you're speaking to her, how you're conveying yourself, your dominant energy, right? But looks do play a part in it, right? If you don't approach any woman and you're working on a basis of choosing signals to approach a woman sexually, then what you have to understand, and you may not even let me say this real quick. There's 2 different types of the 9 level approach, right? One is indirect, where you put out very subtle hints that are integrated into your conversation about sexuality that the woman will bite onto. You'll see her get inflamed by it, and she will pick up on any small sexual innuendo that you make in order to try and escalate it and push it further. That's the 9 level of sexual attraction, right? That's where it's different from the 8. The 8, you have to jump out on that ledge. It's a little bit more masculine than the 9 level, right? A little bit more dominant, a little bit more aggressive. But the 9 level, you can be not that aggressive of a guy and do pretty good with the 9 level. But what percentage of women do you come across really have a 9 level of sexual attraction to you? If it's not enough for you to at least keep your rotation full, right? This is a hard one, right? If it's not enough for your needs to be met consistently, setting that 9 level as an expectation, then something has to change about how you move, or your standard needs to lower. Either the standard of the women that you're approaching, the standard of how sexually attracted they have to be to you, right? Or you have to change certain things about how you're making your approach, because there's two types of 9. One is just being indirect, and she jumps at the opportunity to try to make it sexual, just like the 9-7 dichotomy, right? On the 7 level of sexual attraction, a woman might fuck you after day 1, right? She might fuck you after date 1 on the 7 level of sexual attraction, and she might also do it after a 9 level, right? But the 9-7 dichotomy is this: either way, there is a certain thing being built up. On the 7 level, it's the non-sexual investment that you're making that is building up to the point where she's willing to make that transaction based off of the validation and the comfort that you provide during the date. On the 9 level of sexual attraction, the whole time she's in your presence, she's seeing and experiencing things that arouse her, right? She's seeing and experiencing things that just very much arouse her. And she really would rather be fucking right now than in this date. And this whole date is pretty much working like edging, teasing, and pleasure denial to bring her to the point where as soon as you hit the door, right, she may be trying to suck you off in the bathroom. She may be trying to give you a foot job or a hand job or suck you off under the table. She may be trying to give you head in the parking lot on the way out of there. She may be trying to sneak behind the building in the little alleyway and bust it out, get it cracking in the car. As soon as you hit the door and you get back to the spot, she's ready to go, right? That's the 9 level. It's a 9-7 dichotomy. If you tell the events of the night, those two can look pretty similar. That's why I call it the 9-7 dichotomy. But the motivation may be completely different. Right? I think the difference may be just on the 7 level, she probably not going to have no orgasm or penetration. And on the 9 level, she probably going to have one or multiple, and it's probably going to be pretty quick, unless you're pretty quick. Right? But even then, she might still get it. That's just how Brodie scale of sexual attraction typically works, right? And if she does on a 7 level, like you really catch her by surprise in that moment, which can happen, it may be something she very much enjoys, but it can also, right, when you surprise a woman, it can also can trick her system. It can trick her programming or whatever it is, right? Like a wire trip or whatever it is, to where she might start doing things that show a higher level of sexual attraction that she really has the capacity in her cup to pour out, and it can turn into a bait and switch where she's going to test you because she feels uncomfortable, because she's treating you that way because she's kind of caught up in the moment of the dick was way better than she thought it would be. So if you try to follow through with that behavior for too long, eventually it's going to catch up to you. Right? But it's just different nuances of these different dynamics to think about. Just different nuances of it. But we got to understand what it means to be consistent. What women expound on when they talk about consistent is typically not what it is. Just like when they talk about communication. And then guys try to do the same communication that they say, and then they gaslight the guy and project their gaslighting onto the guy, saying he's gaslighting them when he's trying to communicate how he feels, right? That's why that's not really your role, right? Know your primary role. If your primary role is that you're seeking to be dominant, then you can't go out of your way to over-communicate, right? Because that can make a woman feel unsafe if you're trying to drop down a level. And continuing to pursue a woman or to be less aggressive after you've already been aggressive to try to make the woman comfortable can cause the woman to feel a loss of respect, and that she knows she has the power to manipulate you and get you to shame yourself through her shaming you through her lack of receptiveness. And a woman can't respect a man that she can manipulate. If she knows she can manipulate him, she just can't accept it. She can't respect that man. And it's difficult for a woman to sexually desire a man that she can't respect unless it is someone who she has an extremely high physical level of a sexual attraction to, or a high level of physical compatibility with, and chemistry with, just naturally. But it's really like a plaything, like between when she's really ready to work on herself, and she's kind of in a stage of self-deprecation, or she's in a stage of self-betrayal. She really wants to rebel against her values for a little period of time. So you're pretty much a boy toy. That's the feminine dominant. You're the gigolo, right? So you got to understand the gentleman gigolo complex. A lot of what I talk about is to get beyond those two and to look at polarity, right? Masculine dominant and feminine submissive, right? Because the gentleman is the masculine submissive and the gigolo is the feminine dominant. But the masculine dominant is the leader. The feminine submissive is the follower, the disciple, right? It's like the follower or the disciple, someone who receives your teachings, someone who may even invest to learn, right? To learn you, to spend time with you, to be in your presence. So when we understand these different aspects of this, I think this is going to be a pretty interesting video to talk about. It's Coach Brodie. I'm out.